Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jim McClure.
And I'm Rain Wayland. So, buddy, we were talking about it off mic, but, I finally saw A Different Man.
Yeah.
That was rad, dude. I really enjoyed that one. I think Sebastian Stan he's a fantastic actor, but I think he works really well in this sort of surreal, dark comedy space. I think he's really, really good, like in that kind of like realm,
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. It looks. No. It looks. I saw it. Yeah. No. It was really, really good. I was thinking about and he was also in that Trump movie, and I was gonna say that looks actually pretty good, but I don't know if I'll see it or not. But no, A Different Man is very good. I do recommend it for those who like these weird, surreal type stories. But yeah, Sebastian Stan kicks ass. He was in. I remember the first time I saw him in anything that wasn't Bucky Barnes. He was in I, Tonya, and he crushed. He was so funny. It's so good in I, Tonya. Yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love Adam Pearson, who plays Oswald. I think I've seen them together in interviews, for promoting A Different Man, and Adam just seems so down to earth and very very approachable.
Yeah.
And I think they really worked well together.
Have you seen Under the Skin? He's in Under the Skin.
I think you gave me a copy, and unfortunately it didn't survive the move, so
that's right.
Yeah. But I laughed the hardest when Oswald pushes Edward into the set, and then the set comes crashing down on Edward, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know my own strength." And it's because I just love that he has this kind of deep love and respect for Edward, even though he doesn't know that it just I really enjoyed it. I think it was I thought it was fantastic. I told Mom about it today. I was like, you got to watch it. And she was like, okay, yeah, we might check it out.
Yeah, thank God for HBO Max. Or just Max, sorry. Thank God for Max. Check that out on there. And I think, I don't know what day it is. In a few days or next week or whatever, they're going to put Saturday Night on Netflix. So that's exciting. Yeah. Which I do recommend big time. That was a lot of fun. Super entertaining. So
yeah. Well, and Ashley and I finally saw The Fall Guy.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one.
It was on Prime, or it might still be on Prime, but I remember it being on Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
And then Peacock also having an exclusive extended version.
Yeah, which I saw.
And then we got on Peacock and it's not there. And then we found it on Prime. But yeah, that was also really good.
I gotta be honest, I shouldn't have watched the extended cut because I'm like, this movie's long. And in my opinion, too long. The movie's good and it's fun and it's just a fun action movie. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, fun action movie about a movie about making movies.
Yeah, I like those. I get the criticism, but I like them. They're fun. But yeah, Gosling and Blunt, great.
Dude, I told Mom that we finally saw that, and I told her how I felt like the plot was a little convoluted.
A little bit.
I mean, I still enjoyed the movie, but I'm like, the plot is a little... Because even Ashley at one point was like, so, wait, they were... I'm like, dude, I don't even know. But I still enjoyed the movie. Like you said, Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt. Mom kind of got mad at me. She's like, it is not convoluted. I'm like, it was convoluted, dude. But then again, since Mom is so close to, the actual process of making movies, with Scott, so she didn't, I guess, find the plot convoluted. But with that being said, that's a good segue into my final pick of the show. So everyone, if you tuned in last week, which unfortunately we know you didn't,
yeah.
This week, my final pick of the final pick of the season, finally closing the loop on this very long gap from episode 2. We are doing Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049. Or I should be saying 2049, because in all the extra features I watched today, he would say 2049. But
well, I think that's personal preference. I think once you hit a certain number in the 2020s, or even in the 2000s in general, you quit saying 2000 and
yeah, that's
too long.
true.
And so definitely 2020. 2019 you can get a pass, but 2020 I'm not saying that. It doesn't sound. And again, it's personal preference. Because you wouldn't say, and I mean, this is a terrible example, but like we weren't born in 1993, like 1993, and 2049. That's how I would say it if I were living in 2049, which we'll see if I make it. But
that's for us. That's another. It's another 20 years, 27 years. Oh, no, 22 years now.
Yeah. Wait, what year is it? 20...
It's 25. Or 24 years. My bad. My
years.
math is still off.
That's okay. Yeah, 24 years. That's a while from now. So.
Yeah. But yeah. So, yeah, I did not intend to save this movie for the end. I meant to do it. I think I was going to wait like 2 weeks after we did the original Blade Runner, and then we were going to do it. But then, I don't know, man. There was just all these other movies I really, really wanted to talk about. And then we kind of kept changing up our lists a little bit. And then, and then when you told me that you were really excited to get to the end of season series, which we're going to announce at the end of today's episode, I was like, well, then if we're taking movies off, I have to leave 2049. We have to complete it.
Yeah.
And here it is. Man, this was a movie I saw super late.
Oh, okay.
I saw it after it left theaters.
Okay.
So, like, I bought it physically. That's the first time I saw it. And I really regret not going to the movies to see it. But at that point, I also hadn't seen the original Blade Runner. So I would have felt like I would have had no context to it. But, at the same time, I'm glad now that I have seen them, because, dude, 2049, just Denis, Roger Deakins, the screenwriter, who I can't remember his name, they knocked it out of the park, bridging the gap from the original Blade Runner to this, 30 years later. And it's so good.
Yeah.
It was really good. Did you get a chance to see this in theaters when it was? Oh, you did.
Yes, I did. It was so good.
Yeah. Son of a bitch.
I mean, it was so much fun to see it in the theater. I was so excited. See it when it was announced, and then when it finally, like trailers for it, I was like, "Holy shit!" At this point, what year is it? Okay, yeah, I had seen Arrival by this point, and I saw that in theaters too. I had seen Prisoners, Arrival, and I go, "Oh, okay, well then I'm in." I mean, and Sicario, I had seen all of those, and so I knew who Denis was. I couldn't wait. Yeah, it was really good.
Nice. Well, With that being said, everyone, so Blade Runner 2049 takes place 30 years after the events of our first Blade Runner movie. But instead of following Rick Deckard, we are following Blade Runner Officer K. I'm not going to say his full code name because I don't remember it. Officer K, played by Ryan Gosling, very expertly, I might say, which we'll get to later because apparently he was like the only choice they had for K. Anyway, K is a replicant, but also a Blade Runner, so he is sort of like the lowest of the low in terms of in the eyes of all the other replicants.
Right.
Now, some deep world building that I really love for this is they released 3 short films that bridge the gap from the original. Also, I apologize if everyone can hear this knocking around. Our guinea pig is playing with a toy, and he's been a little aggressive. Anyway, these 3 short films that bridge the gap from 2019, where the original Blade Runner takes place, to this movie, and I feel like it just really deepens the world, especially when we are in 2049.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about the short films a little bit, but back on the synopsis, Kay, in this year of Los Angeles, replicants are second-class citizens, and again, since he's also a Blade Runner, he's at the bottom of the totem pole. Well, he's on a job, retiring a Nexus 8 model by the name of Sapper Morton, Dave Bautista, who only makes it 5 minutes into the movie and then he's dead. But Kay starts to kind of unravel this mystery and conspiracy when he finds these bones buried on Sapper's land of a woman who had died 30 years prior due to childbirth from a emergency C-section. But this woman is also a replicant. So Kay has to kind of uncover the truth and ultimately discover that this replicant, Rachel, from the original film, gave birth to a child, which is supposed to be impossible. And Kay has to now find this child before... I don't know his first name. Everyone just calls him Wallace, Jared Leto's character. The billionaire who has created these new replicants, the Nexus 9s. And Kay starts to believe that maybe he might be the child because a lot of his memories seem very real and how they make him feel. They don't feel like implants. They feel like real memories. And he eventually discovers Rick Deckard, Harrison Ford coming back, which is, I'm sure was awesome to see when you were in the movies.
Cool. I mean, the trailers ruined it, but yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. And ultimately, Kay is not the child. He discovers who the child is, saves the day. Unfortunately, Kay doesn't make it to the end of the movie, but Rick is finally able to be with his daughter. And I mean, I yada over a lot of stuff because we're going to really get into it. I feel like there's so much to talk about, but that was Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Where would you like to begin? Would you like to begin with the short films that you didn't watch?
No, not yet. So, yeah, I've seen them before, but it was when they came out, so that was so long ago. So I don't remember anything about them, to be honest. But no, what's really interesting is just how to make a sequel work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a sequel that's 30 years after the first movie. How do you make that work?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you can't just do the same story over and over again. We see that it can work, but it's boring, and it doesn't break new ground. It's not expanding in the world and all of that. Having a Blade Runner be a replicant and know they're a replicant
Mm-hmm.
is interesting. um, having and knowing all that goes into being a replicant, knowing that his memories are implants, and knowing that he's not human, and that whatever. Um, Going and finding other replicants that also are aware that they are replicants um, is interesting. I feel like because Rachel, I don't think knew at first. Is that right? If I'm remembering that correctly, like
Correct. She didn't know at
yeah,
first, and then through her interactions with Rick, she learns that she is a replicant. That Tyrell has implanted his daughter's memories, and yeah,
having another corporation take over Tyrell it was a good choice.
mm-hmm.
Because again, like having this giant um, this giant corporation with all of these replicant uprisings, especially alluded to at the end of Blade Runner, um, the original, that that's going to be a problem for the company, right? And so I like that
Yeah.
um, they reanalyze. Another company buys Tyrell. They make replicants differently now, and whatever, blah blah blah. The opening text is always helpful, which is
Yeah.
how the first one opens anyway. So that's cool that there's consistency there. And in this one, where the first one we are discovering what it is and what it means to be human, and whether or not
Mm-hmm.
you need to be human physically to be a human mentally, or to be a human just in general,
Mm-hmm.
or to be treated with humanity. Here, in this one, it's more like, what does it mean to have a soul? What does it mean to to be alive, and to have purpose, or um, have a soul? I mean, it's really what
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
what this one tackles, which is interesting because it's similar but different. And just the idea of procreation with
Mm-hmm.
machines, because Wallace does mention when he's talking to Love that it was possible. They figured it out. The blackout happened. They lost it, and he hasn't been able to replicate replicants being able to procreate on their own. And that Tyrell figured it out all those years ago, but the blackout, which when they're talking about it at first, it sort of seems like nonsense world building, like it doesn't matter. They're just talking about like what the hell's happened these past 30 years. But really, it does matter because it stopped Wallace from being able to figure out how to do it. And if he has the child and the bones of Rachel, he can figure it out.
Yeah.
What this movie also establishes that I really, really liked, and it's a very small detail, which is when Kay gets back into his car after killing Sapper's picture from 20 years ago, he looks younger.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a robot. So these robots age.
Well, because he's part of the Nexus Sevens, I believe, who they were designed to age,
Right.
to have a natural lifespan.
So, and again, Denis Villeneuve is very cautious of this, and very conscious of this, and is very cautious in how he approaches it with Deckard, because he does not want to tell you one way or the other, and he still doesn't. We don't know fully if Deckard is a replicant. Okay, um,
So,
I have
so
my opinions. I think that he absolutely 100% is a replicant. Okay.
So, okay. So I'm gonna double down on. I'm pretty sure I said this when we did Blade Runner. Um, not having if I'd never ever seen 2049, I would have been yes, he's a replicant.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I think I think 2049 answers that he's not, that he is human. But again, I like what you just said, which is everyone has their opinions.
Yeah.
Because it could be that maybe that Deckard was one of the first few models of the Nexus 7s that could age
Yeah.
and, have a natural lifespan. Because, that was the whole thing with the Nexus 6s, is that they don't have a natural lifespan, that they do retire on their own. That's the whole reason why Roy does what he does
Right.
in the film. But I don't know, but I think they were saying that he is human. That
I gotta tell you that Villeneuve is like, I'm not telling you one way or the other. This is just we're keeping it ambiguous still.
I agree. I do agree that Denis was not going to answer it one way or the other. I just think there are more hints that Deckard is a human, but also I feel like especially with 2049, we don't need to know if he is or isn't. I think that's unimportant. I think mainly just because we're so excited to see, of course, Harrison Ford back as one of his other classic characters, getting to get thrust into this new version of a world that he already knows, But yeah. Okay. So I don't like Wallace at all.
I mean, you're kind of not supposed to.
I know. I mean, I think just like with Tyrell, you don't like these guys. But and that's not to say that Jared Leto. I think Jared Leto is a good actor. Okay. I think he is a little full of himself sometimes. We'll say sometimes, all the time. I think he understood that Wallace is a creep and was like, I know how to play this. It's just me. But yeah, I think this is.
So we're talking about Wallace. I want you to imagine something.
Okay.
Denis Villeneuve at first, because movies take a long time to make. Denis goes, I want David Bowie to be Wallace. And I want you to imagine what that would have been like.
Dude.
Because I don't think you would have sat there and said, I don't like Wallace if it had been David Bowie.
I don't think I would have either.
Yeah, I think it would have been like, maybe Wallace has a point. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think had Bowie been alive, I think we would have gotten another Jared the Goblin King kind of situation. Very charismatic anti-hero.
I mean, it was only 6 months. He died 6 months before they started shooting, and they had to scramble because it's like, damn it.
Now again, that's not to say that I think Jared Leto understood the character of Wallace. Again, I do think he's pretentious in his whole. I think his approach to acting. I mean, honestly, it's what drove Marlon Brando crazy. This whole method acting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think Jared understood that Wallace is a guy who I feel like he has the ultimate god complex.
Yeah.
You know, as where the first film, Tyrell, he definitely has a god complex, but it's more of like, well, I'm doing this for the people. Wallace, 100% is, I am God.
Yeah.
I create life, and I will continue to create life and push this as far as I can. I mean, as he tells Deckard, because Deckard says, "You don't have any children, do you?" And he goes, "Oh, I have 1,000,000." You know,
Yeah.
I think Jared really understood that this guy is slimy, and I think he's the ultimate evil, which is he lets others do his dirty work.
Hmm.
You know, I think he programmed Love to be sort of like his enforcer
Of course.
and be this, I wouldn't say killing machine, but to do whatever is necessary
Hmm.
to get results. You know, I mean, we see her kill David
Oh
Dalsmatian.
man, I was just about to say David Dalsmatian. He is. I love him so much. Um, Villeneuve likes him too, which is cool because he was also in Prisoners.
And Dune.
Yeah, he's so good. I'm such a big fan. I'm so happy he's getting his he's getting his time right now because of
Yeah.
Late Night with the Devil. I'm so excited.
Yeah. But yeah, yeah, man, when I first saw 2049, you know, I didn't like Wallace then, but rewatching it now, I'm like, man, I really just don't like him, you know, and again, a testament to Denis and the entire production. You know, we don't see Wallace that much. You know, I think he's really only got two very big scenes in the entire movie.
Yeah.
And those two scenes really establish him as, honestly, a very insecure billionaire with a god complex.
Yeah.
And I don't like him.
Yeah, I know. I don't either. He's not, he's not um, one of these villains that you're kind of like, well, if you think about it, really, this is what they're trying to do. Really, you're absolutely right. He just has a god complex, and he wants to create life and to create life that can create its own.
Yeah.
And finding, this, this evidence that it can happen. He just needs to figure it out.
Yeah. And this goes to one of the short films, Blade Runner, or it's just called 2036, Nexus Dawning,
Mhm.
where Wallace goes to, I guess, the council of people who have prohibited the production of replicants to prove to them that he can create a replicant that strictly obeys.
Right.
And I will say that does leave this world of 2049 at an interesting standpoint, because his replicants, the Nexus 9 models, are designed to obey, designed to follow commands, which again, it's what makes, I think, Kay such a fascinating character, because he's also a cop, specifically a Blade Runner, and you know, he has to hunt down his own kind.
Mhm.
And it's just so fascinating that his specific model has to obey.
Mhm.
You know, and it's very interesting.
Well, and I
And
like that from the first one, it takes the concept of these replicants. Yes, they are programmed and they are designed to do these very specific things, but they also acquire their own consciousness over time. I mean, um, whenever Kay gets back from, oh fuck, what was it? I forgot where, but he gets back to the police station and he can't complete his his base.
It's after he sees the doctor.
That's right.
Who implanted his memories.
Right. He can't because he's so preoccupied. But see, here's the thing: is a robot is preoccupied is crazy. you know,
Yeah.
it's. I think that I don't think it's a flaw in the storytelling or in because when you get to stories like robots and are they conscious and do they have inner thoughts and do they have anxieties and fears and all of that. I think that it's sort of a flaw in world in the design of these Nexus models. I think that
Mm-hmm.
they're designed so well that they the people, the humans, don't think about it like that. They don't think that these robots, these replicants, have thoughts, feelings, fears, anxieties, um, introspections, but they do. And I think
Yeah.
that it's because they see them as such lower life forms that either they don't bother to care or they just ignore it. You know?
Well, and especially, and I think now is a good segue, especially what happened in this 30 years between the original Blade Runner and now. Barely 3 years later in 2022, that was 3 years earlier for us. Um, the blackout happens, where two rogue replicants destroyed the power plant, that caused the blackout, wiped out everything. It's what bankrupted the Tyrell Corporation. Then it took to the 2036, so 14 years later, it took society 14 years to, in a way, rebuild,
Mhm.
and but also for Wallace to step in and be like, well, I designed new replicants that will obey, that will do exactly what they're told. They won't cause an insurrection. They won't cause revolution. Trust me. And then 13 years later, it's almost like it's not happening again, but now these replicants have something to fight for, which is, in a sense, freedom. That if they can have children, well, then they're more human than human.
That's right. They exactly. They're no longer just replicants at that point. If they
Yeah.
can, procreate.
Yeah. Yeah. And this kind of also goes back to another element of the movie that I love, that I think they really expanded upon from the original, which is this sort of, and maybe you can correct me, but this is how I see it, as a hard-boiled detective story
Mhm.
of Kay trying to solve this case. And yes, definitely the original Blade Runner was also sort of a hard-boiled detective mystery,
Mhm.
but I feel like they were able to kind of expand on it, especially with, again, putting who we know, because I will indulge you that Deckard is a replicant, but of course the audience doesn't know that. But in this one, we know Kay's a replicant, so
Mhm.
we're putting this replicant in the middle of this entire conspiracy. And I love seeing Kay work the case. If I haven't mentioned it in, like, Brick, for example, I really dig, like, these, like, detective stories.
Mhm.
I think that's another reason why I, not only because it's a fantastic movie, but I think that's why I love Knives Out, is seeing Benoit Blanc, work the case.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, now something else I want to talk about, because we've been kind of talking a little bit about Kay, but I do really like that they kind of wanted to make him such a lonely character,
Mhm.
um, to the point where his quote unquote girlfriend is just a hologram, because he's, like I said at the top of the show, he's really the lowest of the low. you know Humans see him as like a second class citizen, his own people, replicants, see him as, you know, uh, you know, uh, I can't think of a good word, but because he's a Blade Runner, so he can only really find companionship in a hologram.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it is a Wallace
Yeah,
product.
yeah.
Joy. Joy is interesting because Joy is a reflection of Kay in a way, because Kay, um, he modifies. He has preference. He, if whenever we get to the end of the film, um, and you get that memeable moment, which is "You look lonely," you know. Um,
Yeah.
it is still Ana de Armas, but that's not her voice. It's a different person speaking, and so um, that implies that Kay changed her voice for his joy.
Mm.
Changed her voice, changed her affect, probably changed, just modified, customized. Because joy is just that. She's customizable. Anybody who buys a joy can make her whatever they want. And look and sound and however. So our joy in the film is a reflection of in
Mhm.
that sense.
Now, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Speaking about joy, do you think, much like Kay, or really any of the replicants in this world, do you think she also starts to learn and adapt and kind of have a conscience? Because um, she right before she dies, she's trying to tell Kay that she loves him.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I think that's another reason why that scene, of course, of the big joy is I think so iconic, because she calls that hologram, calls him Joe,
Mhm.
which is what his joy was calling him, um, which I've always seen and interpreted as that's the moment either that he realizes that he has customized joy, his joy over the years, or that, like, oh, she is still just a program. um
Yeah. It's hard because, like, joy, how we see joy, the audience, is it's a good example of how, in the world of Blade Runner, how humans see replicants.
mhm,
Because we're like, they're obviously not human. They're these man-made machines, servants, and in this case, just a companion. Um,
mhm.
that you know, their joy is at if you boil it down, she's an app. You know, um, I love joy. I don't want to take anything away from
No, 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 no,
joy.
no. No, but I do understand what you're saying, because especially when Kay gets her an upgrade,
Mhm.
um, which is that she he doesn't have to use the arm that's installed in his apartment.
Yeah.
She can move freely. Um, you know, um, yeah, but no, I was thinking about that today, rewatching them, especially that scene when Joy tries to tell Kay that she loves him. It made me think a lot of shout out to, I don't remember which season, but when we did Her,
Hmm. Oh, sure.
and her and Samantha starts to learn and
Yeah.
actually have feelings, even though she's just a program.
Right.
That's what it kind of made me think of. But
Hmm.
then again, that scene is so iconic now because it's become so memeable. Um, Again, it's almost like how, like I said, how I've always seen it is it breaks Kay, because it's almost like he's finally realizing that she was just a program.
Hmm.
But also, I want to choose to believe that his joy was sort of expanding her consciousness and like him, becoming more than what she was programmed to be.
Right.
And legitimately did love him, but I think yeah, I don't know. But the giant joy scene I think is fantastic.
Oh,
And
I know. Yeah, and of course, I
um
mean, we. I guess we can talk about it now, even though we're jumping back and forth from production to story to whatever. But I mean, Roger Deakins is
dude,
the greatest living cinematographer. Full stop. I mean,
yeah.
the yellows, the blues, the reds, the blacks. I mean, it is sharp and vibrant, and it's immersive. It's amazing.
Yeah, dude. I was watching some of the special features today, and Denis said he couldn't have done this without Roger Deakins.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about at length, doing Prisoner and Sicario, Denis is such an accomplished filmmaker. And I think when you really partner him with an equally talented second party, like I was telling mom, or was it mom, or was it Ashley? I don't remember. I really want him and Taylor Sheridan to collaborate again, because
Sure.
I think Sicario was a fantastic film.
I don't know if you want modern Taylor Sheridan.
No, that's true. I'll talk to you about that off camera, because I think we inflated his ego a little bit
Whoop.
when we did Hell or High Water.
Yeah, so he listened, and we should have. He's
Yeah.
a big fan.
Yeah. But I am so glad that Roger Deakins wanted to do this with Denis, because I think they are a powerhouse team
Mhm.
together. Because Denis said that he could go to Roger and bounce ideas off of him, and vice versa. Roger could come to him and be like, "Hey, what about this shot?" And yeah, and as you're just saying, the cinematography of the movie speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Especially when Kay's in Vegas.
Yeah.
Dude, how they lit that.
That yellow is crazy.
Insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, in that, this is a good segue back to the story. I like the implications of, and we probably talked about this last time. That was years ago when we talked about Blade Runner, but the lack of organic life forms like animals,
mhm.
Because the dog is probably not real. But when Kay puts his hand in the the um, the beehive, and then he takes it
Mhm.
out, and the bees are all over his hand. I saw something that said they didn't sting him. I mean, how would we know, and how would he know? But I don't know if that would bother him very much if they did. Although he does seem to be in pain sometimes, so probably it would have hurt him. But because they're not real. They're
Mhm.
they're doing the job of bees, but they are not real bees.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting, and of course the whole idea of a tree. People don't know what a tree is anymore.
Yeah.
And having a real wooden horse is like gold, which I thought was also really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I do love that. Yeah. Again, expanding on the world of the original Blade Runner. Yeah, I love that nothing's really organic. Yeah, or if it is organic, it's yeah, I like the comparison that you just made, like, of gold. Like, they're just like, oh my god,
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about Kay, we've talked about Joy. um I want to say again, a testament to how fantastic of an actor Harrison Ford is. The way he was able just to slip back into Rick Deckard, is amazing. especially because I love that Kay even tells him, I got the impression that you were no bullshit,
Yeah.
because Rick is obviously pressing his buttons, but not answering his questions. And, I love the fact that, that again, that Harrison just slipped back in almost like he had been playing. Like, I'm going to make a comparison you're not going to like, but like with Han Solo,
Sure.
when he did The Force Awakens, he slipped right back into Han Solo like effortlessly. Um, I also, this is kind of a fun fact of the production. I really wish they would have used the shot where you can see the look of horror on uh, Harrison Ford's face when he actually punched Ryan Gosling in the face during their fight scene.
Whoops.
Because he didn't mean to do it. Ryan, I think he didn't step back far enough, and Harrison connected right to his face. And I'm sure you can find it, but there's like this look of horror of Harrison going like,
Ooh.
um,
Whoops.
yeah. But I love that we get to see, and again, testament to Denis, because I was watching the special features. Denis felt like this story couldn't work if Deckard wasn't back.
Yeah.
I agree too, because especially if it's, we're trying to solve this mystery of this replicant, and it turns out to be Rachel, then we need to know what happened to Deckard.
Right.
And again, I don't like Wallace, but I really love the philosophical question he asks him, when making him remember the first time meeting Rachel, which is, it makes me wonder if it was set up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it really kind of makes you reanalyze the first movie.
Yeah.
Like if Tyrell wanted Deckard to meet Rachel and fall in love with her.
Yeah, no, I was reading about that even the subtle little, moments in the film, like they stop fighting for a moment because he likes the song "I Can't Help Falling in Love with You," Elvis.
Yeah.
And that's sort of being a moment where you're meant to think, well, maybe what if literally he couldn't help falling in love with Rachel? What if she was programmed? What if he was programmed for them to fall in love and for them to procreate? Because number one, they wanted to save those possible, because that's what Rachel's designed for. But what if they were literally programmed for it? And again, it brings up these philosophical questions, which this free will, and is their love manufactured?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, okay. I want to talk about another character I don't like in this movie, which is Love. I do not like Love. Now, she for sure, I know the character was created for us to not like her.
That's
right. I mean, she's killing people on whims. I fucking hate the fact that she kills Robin Wright.
Yeah.
But also, what a baller move of Robin Wright. I mean, like, then do what you got to do.
She's basically a T-1000. She doesn't do much shit.
Yeah.
These guys are basically Terminators.
Which I love the fact I've never cheered harder for a character death than when Kay finally kills her, dude.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying, because she thinks she's got him on that Goosebumps walk away, when she stabs him in the side and does the whole like I'm the best, but then Kay still manages to drown her. It's so good, man. Like it's so vindicated. Not good. That's why I said vindicated. Because Kay, still reeling from the fact that he was impaled from that explosion,
Yeah.
left for dead in Vegas, um, stabbed by Love, still manages to kill her, save Deckard, and get him to his daughter.
Yeah.
Before he finally succumbs to the darkness.
Well, speaking of the daughter, here's something that I really liked, and I didn't feel cheated in the film, where we're led to believe that he is the child.
Oh, dude.
Right? And
Yeah.
it's like, man, what if he is? That's crazy. What are the odds? And because he has these memories, and they're so real, and what they're talking about, correlates with the memories that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, maybe it's me.
Yeah.
I like that it's not taking us all the way through to the end. He finds out, where he's with that sector of replicants that are, part of the rebellion, I assume.
Yeah.
And it was very, it was sweet because, the woman, I don't remember her name.
You keep talking, I'll look it up.
Thank you. Like the leader. Oh, I found it. Freysa, sure. The one who's missing an eye. She, she's very gentle with him and says, you thought it was you. We all wish it was. We all wish it was one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the symbol of humanity for replicants. And it's just because she's using real memories for implants.
Yeah, man. I think that is one of my favorite twists, and it's so subtle when she goes, when she was born, and Kay goes, she, you're like, oh my god, it's not Kay, which then you reanalyze everything you've just seen, and it makes sense that Anna, the doctor, would get so emotional seeing that memory because it was her. Like, dude, it's so good.
Well, and all the boys had their heads shaved, and that kid's head wasn't shaved, so it must be a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Damn it, it was good, and I appreciated it. I didn't feel like they were trying to pull the rug out from under me. I just felt like of course he would think it's him. It's his memory. Why wouldn't he?
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with that line of dialogue that even Anna says to him, memory is how it makes us feel, and when he recalls that memory to Robin Wright, and, he is explaining how it makes him feel. And so it's just, it's so good, man.
Yeah.
And I really love that we don't get that Kay doesn't answer Deckard's question even at the end when Deckard says, "What am I to you?" And Kay just says, like, "Go see your daughter."
Yeah.
I think it's because, one, we don't need to know, like I feel like as the audience, we don't need to know that, like, Kay tells Deckard, well, this whole time I thought I was your son, but it's not me,
Yeah.
I think it's just better that Kay is just like, hey, look, man, I brought you to the finish line. You don't need to, like, I'm done. Don't worry about me. Go see your daughter.
I think in a way he does feel obviously connected to Deckard because of his implanted memories are from his child. So that would make perfect sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of like that it's like the I'm not quite sure Kay is actually dead at the end. I feel like that's sort of ambiguous. Um, of him just looking up at the sky while the snow falls. Um, I mean, he's hurt, but it reminded me of the end of Drive. Have you seen Drive?
I have not.
Then I won't say it because I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah.
Drive is so good. Everyone's got to see it.
I'm surprised that hasn't gotten a Criterion release. That
It's really good.
Yeah, man. I love how I feel like we've talked a lot about the plot and the thing and the story. I just want to like gush over how expertly Denis and the whole team was able to do a sequel so faithfully, that it didn't feel shoehorned. It didn't feel like nostalgia bait. It didn't feel, and I think that also is a testament to letting, to Ridley Scott, letting a new director kind of helm this. Ridley, of course, was a producer, and Denis also said, Ridley. He also said he wouldn't have been able to do this if Ridley wasn't in his corner. But I think Ridley Scott giving the reins over to someone else, I think was the right decision. Which also makes me excited for the show that he's producing, Blade Runner 2099.
Yeah.
50 years after this movie. And all I know is that Michelle Yeoh is going to be in it. So I'm
cool.
I'm interested. I'm interested to see. All I know is that it says that she's supposed to be playing a replicant at the end of her life cycle.
Interesting.
So, yeah, but 2049, man, I think it really elevates all the themes from the first movie. Like what you were saying, like this movie is really trying to find like what does it mean to have a soul, and I agree. All these philosophical and these meanings that I'm sure they also took from Philip K. Dick's novel.
Sure.
I feel like are elevated for 2049, and it's just they nailed it, bro.
Yeah,
they nailed it.
Rehashing of the same story. It's different yet similar. We're still dealing with similar themes, but it's told in a different way, and it's it's a good sequel for sure.
I will say, but I think it's funny. I didn't realize it the first time I ever saw 2049, but rewatching it, this version is definitely the Los Angeles is definitely brighter than than the original. The original is definitely Los Angeles is definitely darker and dingier. This version is still pretty dingy, but I felt like it was brighter in the sense like it's almost like they had more lights.
Yeah.
Like after overcoming what happened with the blackout, that they're like, we need more lights everywhere.
Give me lights.
Yeah. Holograms, make them turn up the joy hologram to the highest magenta setting.
Sure.
But yeah, man, I think I can't tell you if I've seen a sequel, one that has taken this long, over what the first Blade Runner was 82. This was 2017, so 35 years.
Yeah.
I can't tell you another movie that has taken that long to make a sequel, and they nailed it on the first try.
Yeah.
I could tell you one that took less time that sucks. And that's Avatar: The Way of Water. I will die on that hill.
That's fine.
Um,
It hurt my feelings.
I've told everyone that. I refuse to watch that movie, and they're like, "Why? It's so good." And I'm like, "Because I saw the first Avatar in theaters in 2008 when it came out.
Yeah.
It was good. I saw the 3-hour-long director's cut. It was good. Way too late for a sequel now." Which just kind of undermined what I just said about this movie, but I think it's because this movie, as I feel like we've discussed it at length at this point, is they nailed it. And I think that's the distinction between Avatar and Avatar 2. Is I don't think James Cameron nailed it. I think it was a cash grab. I think that's what that was.
Sure. Yeah.
But with that being said, buddy, are you ready to wrap up?
Yeah. Love it, of course. Like, this movie is incredible. It still tackles philosophical questions. It still tackles all these deep, deep and interesting ideas, while still being, very interesting and compelling, and still within this really cool genre. And it was great.
Yeah, I agree. I really can't wait to see the first trailer for 2099.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting to see, especially because I've already had the idea of that we probably won't see Rick Deckard in this one, and I think that's fine. I think it's okay. I think the story can work. I think in this context, the story can work without him. But yeah, 2049 is fantastic. I got to get Ashley to watch it. I finally got her to watch Blade Runner, and she really liked Blade Runner.
Yeah.
So now I got to get her to watch this one. But yeah, man. Great way for my final pick.
Agreed.
So with that being said, man, we are now in the end game of season 10, the end of season series, which is it's your turn now.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about the theming, or do you want to wait until the final episode?
No. Let's talk about the theming.
Okay. Well, I will let you tell everyone.
Okay. So every time, we do an end of season series, I try to see what kind of cool, interesting topic I can come up with that will connect all these movies together, that isn't so predictable, or you haven't really thought about it that way, or maybe it's just an excuse to watch some of these movies and then I just pick other ones to go along with it, whatever. With the exception from stage to screen, which we've done twice now, which, I mean, of course, there's, hundreds of these, so we could definitely do another one of those eventually. But no, this time, it was something we discussed in season 1, where we were in our film noir episode, and I go, "Oh, that would be really cool." But this one would also be really cool, and then this one, blah, 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 whatever. So then I go, well, let me make sure, because I think I'm right, but let me make sure. And it turns out, yes, these two are connected through this. I just need 2 more, and we're done. So this time, this season, we are discussing, for the end of season series, filmmakers that only made 1 movie. Okay? So we're calling it One and Done, and a lot of these aren't because they just told 1 story and that was all they had. In this first case, we have an actor, Charles Laughton, who directed 1 film in his lifetime. It is called The Night of the Hunter, which at the time was panned and hated and criticized, and he never got to see his movie appreciated. He never made a movie after that, and then when he passed away, obviously his career's over. Now it's considered one of the greatest films ever made. Robert Mitchum gives an incredibly horrifying performance. Some of the shots in here you're not going to believe, and would later inspire Spike Lee in a very specific way and do the right thing. So yeah, this season we're doing one and dones, and these movies are going to get weird. So
yeah, I remember you telling me about Night of the Hunter, and I want to say like I watched some, either it was like Watch Mojo or something like that, and you know they mentioned it, and I was like, man, I got to see this movie. So I added it to my Criterion wish list, got it, haven't watched it, mainly because I'm not gonna lie, I am a little scared, you know, just because you've told me all about the movie, and you know, I've read the back of my Criterion Blu-ray, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm a little scared to watch this. Not in the sense of like that it would be scary, but just in the sense of like, man, is this like gonna like change how I see like movies from this era, you know?
It might.
In a good way. In a good way, though.
Yeah, it came out in 1955. It definitely doesn't feel like it. It's a very cool noir story. And yeah, again, there are parts of this movie that are kind of scary. So, yeah, it's great.
Nice. Well, with that being said, everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Blade Runner 2049. And we will see you next week for part 1 of our interseason series, One and Done, for Night of the Hunter.